My name is Craig Robinson, community developer on Rainbow Six Siege.
We're here discussing the latest season of Rainbow Six Siege, and you guys have busted out one very spooky character and one guy that looks very by the book. But it seems like there's a strong emphasis on stealth tactics this season.
Indeed, and I think it's one of those things where for Knock, we're experimenting on a lot of different concepts for how we can change how the defenders have to play, and we're doing the same thing with Warden. So Knock is going to be targeting those roamers on defense and moving around the map without really having to deal with the defense knowing where she is. And Warden is kind of the opposite, where he's going to be sitting on the bomb site and waiting for the attackers to come to him. And he's more of a reactionary operator. He's kind of the first one that was built that way. And so what we have is an operator who is kind of fighting on her own terms as Knock, with her ability allowing her to move freely, and Warden doing the same but in a reactive way. And so, as soon as the attackers come in and start using their utility, he's able to activate his glasses, see through all of it, and engage the attackers. And it's pretty interesting how it's going to be really interesting how it shifts the dynamic of the game in the meta.
Nice. How have you seen people using these new characters in initial gameplay? Have you seen anyone do anything particularly unique that you didn't expect, like people would do with either Knock or Warden?
Well, it's one of those interesting things where we have learned throughout the development process of Rainbow, starting back at launch and kind of alpha, is players are going to play Rainbow Six in a very different way than we ever anticipate they will. And so even back before launch, we thought certain operators were going to be way overpowered, and they ended up being some of the least played and worst operators once players started playing Rainbow Six their way. And so yes, we've gone through a few different iterations of each operator and kind of built them on how we see them being played in our team and our internal play tests that we have every week. But it's going to be really interesting seeing how our players do the same thing and how they discover new ways to play these operators that we had never really necessarily thought of.
Nice. Now, when you bring in new characters like this, do you have to think about retooling or rebalancing any of the other available characters that are already in the game, or is it just more like you've kind of got your assault and your defense characters, and they sort of balance each other out just by having those two new classes?
It would be really nice if they just balanced each other out like that. That's one of the tricky parts about Rainbow Six Siege is balance for the game is ongoing, and it will never stop. And every time we introduce new operators, there is that kind of push-pull effect on the overall meta, and we have to constantly make adjustments to operators to ensure that the game is staying balanced and staying fair. A great example of that is Glaz, where we made a change to his weapon optic, his scope, and we gave him the ability to see through smoke grenades. And because we did that, we had to go through and adjust the kits and loadouts for a bunch of other attacking operators to remove smokes and put in different utility, or we'll add smokes to an underpicked operator so that if they're used in conjunction with Glaz, they see more play. And so it's an ongoing process, and the balancing teams work is never done, but we're really happy with where our game is at right now in terms of the overall balance and the meta, and we're going to continue making fine adjustments and tweaks to tune that and bring it to where we want it to be.
So I guess what inspired the redesign for the map? Is that just something that you guys generally do and you felt like it was time to spruce it up a bit, or were there just like holes in like strategic placements and things like that?
So we've learned a lot, similar to how we've learned a lot about our operators since launch. We've learned a lot about how our level design comes into play, with post-launch. And so we have we have maps that are built in a specific way that we thought they would be played. And, Cafe is one of our legacy maps. It was from the very beginning. And we've learned a lot about how that map is built and how people are interacting with the map. And so we've had to make a bunch of adjustments to it to improve the flow and the viability of all the different bomb sites, to make sure that the map is taking into account the learnings that we've had since we've released the game.
Now, how do you take something like Operation Phantom Sight and integrate it into the esports league?
Well, there is a cooldown period for our operators when they're newly released, and so we have Operation Phantom Sight will have obviously Knock and Warden, but they will not be available for play for, I believe, 3 months. Jay will probably have to confirm. I'm not super familiar with the esports, but I'm pretty sure it's a 3-month period where those operators are involved. They're not able to be used, and so I believe we call it quarantine. We use that with Lion. And so we're not able to, the professional players are not able to use Knock and Warden for that 3-month period. And then after that, so it gives them enough time to kind of learn and understand what these operators bring to the table. And then after that 3-month period expires, when the next season releases, then they're able to start using the past season's operators.
Nice. What would be your advice to players that want to try using these two new characters?
Well, I think that for Knock, your map knowledge is going to be the most important thing. And so if you want to play Knock, make sure you're playing her on a map that you're familiar with, so that you know where the defenders are going to be and how you can maneuver around them to hit them from the flank. And then for Warden, I'd say that you need to make sure that you are holding a position where the attackers are going to come through and they're going to start trying to use their utility to flush you out, because you're able to activate your glasses and see through all of that utility that they're burning to try and flush you out and engage them without them being aware and ready for it.
Nice. Now, Warden kind of seems like he's all about holding the position. Do you think that might lend itself better to certain strategies for specific maps, possibly?
100% specific maps, and even more granularly, specific bomb sites. And so, there are some sites that he will be a must pick for, and there are some sites where he might not play as big of a role. And so, it's one of those things where these teams that are trying to figure out how they want to approach these different bomb sites and the defense of these bomb sites are going to need to work on strategies around Warden and determining whether or not he should be a part of how they're approaching it.
Let's talk about the mustache a little bit. Where did the mustache come from? Were you just trying to go for that traditional Law and Order NYPD sort of vibe with him?
I can't really say, but it really is an impressive mustache. I saw it the first time and I was just like, wow, that is something.
Do you think that's going to get more people to play Rainbow Six Siege?
It's hard to say. You might get more people playing Rainbow Six Siege to grow a mustache, though.
It's all about that mustache factor.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Knock and her look. She reminds me a lot of the girl from The Ring in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I think that from a artistic point of view, the style for the season was kind of grounded in horror and shrouded in mystery, and she fits very, very well with that. She is a part of the Danish Jaeger Corps, and they are really well known for having that netting over their face to hide their identity and kind of mask their silhouette. And it's a very iconic special operations counterterrorism unit type of look, and we wanted to bring that to Siege. I think it was delivered pretty well.
Yeah. The way I was attempting to play her, I'm not that great. But the way that I was trying to play her was sort of use the stealth ability to get from point A to point B, wait for it to recharge, and sort of kind of move from location to location that way, trying to avoid detection until I could get close enough to where the opposing team had sort of hunkered down and do what I could. It didn't quite work out well for me, but is that sort of a strategy
Absolutely. And I mentioned earlier about how map knowledge really is a huge factor for that. So, playing as Nock, you're going to want to use that ability similar to how you're using it, but making sure that you're coming at the defenders from an angle that they're not expecting. And so, your team's over here. Maybe you have moved around behind the defenders to the opposite side of the site, and you're approaching from that angle. And so, map knowledge, again, is going to be one of the biggest things when you're playing Nock.
So you guys have also made some tweaks to the ranked playlist for people just to make it a little easier to navigate this time around, right?
Absolutely. So we from the UI side, what we've done is we've implemented a playlist guide, and so it'll show you what your rank is for the current season, where you're at right now, as well as your rank for the past couple of seasons. And then it'll also have a breakdown of where you stand in comparison to the rest of the ranked player pool as far as ranks go. It has the rules for that playlist and a couple other interesting, exciting features. Our plan is over time to expand that feature, that guide feature, to all the playlists. But right now we're piloting it with season 2, with ranked in season 2. In ranked, however, we are moving to bomb only, so that'll be an exciting change. We're also introducing pick and ban to rank for the first time ever. So this is a Pro League esports exclusive feature for the last, I want to say, almost a year now, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything kind of buttoned up and it was working exactly how we wanted it to before we implemented it into ranked, and it's coming this season. And so ranked is going to be very different and exciting. It's going to be a very fresh experience for our players.
Nice, just sort of integrating a few features from other key esports out there, it sounds like.
Well, and it's one of those things that we want to make sure that we're able to put more choice and control in how the game is played within the player's hands. And so by banning specific operators, you are forcing additional creativity on both teams, your own and the opposing team. And so, if you are going to ban both of our hard breachers or two of our hard breachers, then both teams need to figure out how they're going to approach each bomb site differently than if some other type of operator was banned. So it's a great way for us to put more creativity in our players' hands. It worked out really well in our esports scene, and we want to see how it does in ranked as well.
Nice. So there hasn't really been too many, I guess people haven't had too much of a need for alts per se up until now then. I mean, obviously if someone picks the character you were trying to play on your team, you should probably have someone ready, but it hasn't been like a major point of contention where maybe someone will remove your main.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where players are going to need to start getting a deeper roster of operators they're familiar with, and so start practicing. It's coming.
All right. Sweet. Operation Phantom Sight, when can we look forward to getting our hands on this content?
So the test server is going live on May 21st, I believe. And we have a test server for a few weeks, and then once we're happy with where the build's at and we've been able to address any lingering issues, then we're ready to push it live. We just don't have a live date for it yet.